Hey, this is Lorena and I wanted to do a video for you on how I get ready to custom quilt one of my clients' quilt on the long arm. And so I'm going to share with you step by step on how I get started. I love custom quilting is when I'm finished. Because they're a lot of work. Yeah, and I've had this quilt so long. One poor client, she's probably mad at me already, like, hurry up, Lorena, hurry up. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. I'm nervous. I'm scared. But I'm gonna do it, okay, fine. So we're gonna do it and try to get it done in a week or two. So let's get going. All right, on this quilt, I went ahead and I laid on the quilt a Palon 100% cotton batting. I love this batting, and I laid it towards the back fabric. And I also found this very thin, high loft poly batting. I'm not a poly batting person, but there's something about poly batting or wool that makes the quilt loft up, and you really want that beautiful dimension when you're custom quilting. And it's very thin, so it isn't going to put a lot of weight on the quilt, but it is going to loft the batting up. So when you see the quilting, it's gonna pop. It's gonna pop. You want to know how you get that loft? Poly batting or wool, but some people are allergic to wool, and wool is expensive. It makes everything look delicious. So I like the thin polyester, so I'm going to baste, and the way I baste is I just do the single stitch. So initially I go ahead and I do a very top basting stitch. I tend to baste the stitches down because sometimes I found if I sewed it down, I ended up having issues where I had to unstitch it, and basting stitches are easier to unstitch. If you need to move the fabric a little bit, maybe it's not horizontal the way you want it. Okay, so one of the things I do with custom quilts is I baste them down. Because when you're quilting, the quilt will shift on you. Alright, so I have the machine here, and I made sure that the batting is nice and straight. I'm going to baste down from here. So I baste the right side, or this is the left side. And then probably like a foot or two, I'm gonna baste all the way down. And this will stabilize the quilt for custom quilting. On the right side, and then I'm gonna baste. Then I'm gonna have a needle down. Realign everything, make sure everything's nice and flat and tight, because when I custom quilt, I quilt from the center out. They have issues already, and this is a great way to find out if the quilt is going to have issues. Nice and tight. And then I'm going to go up to here, and then I'm going to baste this way. Usually when I'm basting down, I tend to have at least one side open, and the reason I baste that way is so that the fabric, if there's some puddling or some fullness in an area, I'm able to work the fabric. And that's why I don't baste both sides, because you can, but I found that sometimes when you're custom quilting, you'll end up in an area that has a lot of fullness, and then you have to remove the baste. And I've noticed if I just baste one side, the fabric is able to be maneuvered easier. So, baste. And usually I have like the pullers. So I'm gonna have it here. I'm gonna put one of the pullers on here so it's like, and then I'm gonna baste across. then go base down again, then have a needle down. See how I basted it? And then it's going down. I also wanted to share why I'm basting. I quilted a client's quilt a long time ago and I didn't baste the quilt and make sure that it was locked down. And what I ended up finding out is the quilt was warped. By the time I was at the second to last row of finishing the quilt was off, and I found out a bit too late, and so I ended up panicking. What I find, if I base now, before I even custom quilt anything, that the quilt itself will reveal if there is a problem. So I basted down right here, and then I'm going to baste across again and do the same process. As a matter of fact, there is a section right here where you see that I basted the fabric because it had some fullness, and it seems a little wrinkled. Now when I go back and custom quilt it, I'll be able to steam that down and get rid of the fullness or maneuver the fullness when I'm quilting. But at least now, before I even stitched it down, girl, I already know if I'm gonna have problems with this quilt or if there's an issue before I even get going. Basted down like a foot, then I basted all the way across. Here's the base. Then I'm gonna baste down. Right now I have the needle down, and I'm gonna roll the quilt and go back on the opposite end again. Go. Now, some things I want you to keep an eye out on. It's when you are basting these 4 layers together, make sure there's no wrinkles, folds, pleats. Make sure that all your layers, your back fabric is nice and taut, and that your 2 layers of batting are nice and flat. And you know, you're kind of just gonna make sure that everything is nice and smooth. I'll make sure the batting, everything is nice and flat. But now I know the condition of the quilt, like you can see, it's pretty even. It's pretty straight, I guess you could say. I also wanted to share that when you're custom quilting, you're rolling the quilt backwards and forwards a lot because you're trying to make sure that you could quilt in all those sections. And there's also a lot of stops and starts. So having the quilt basted helps you control the fabric and make sure the fabric stays in the position you initially pulled it on, instead of it shifting on you and you don't have those spacing stitches to control the shifting. So I basted everything. It's a little bit off, but okay. I'll fix that later. Now I'm gonna start marking. Okay, do you see the back fabric? Back fabric. You don't want pleats in the back when you're gonna be doing a lot of work. So I'm gonna let it go till center, because I'm gonna start working from the center out. I hope you're excited and coming along with me and custom quilting this quilt. I've always wondered how custom quilters quilt their quilts. Now, I don't know if I'm quilting it the right way because no one's ever really taught me, so this is me doing my own process and figuring it out. And so I don't know if I'm doing it right, but this is how I do it. So I hope you like coming along with me and just maybe learning something. So this thing is beautiful, this quilt is delicious, and I'm already almost completely done with it, so I already know how it's gonna end up, but it's delicious. So I'll see you later, and I have another video coming up soon on the back house, so I'll see you I'll see you sooner than later. All right, thank you for watching. Bye.